Tessenow had a strange destiny in a way. He was the professor of Albert Speer, who was the architect of Adolf Hitler. But Heinrich Tessenow was against the Nazis. And actually, he was in some conflict with the political and then military regime then. And I asked myself, why was it that, in fact, Albert Speer was even his assistant in 1927 or something like this, when Tessenow was a professor of architecture. So he died on November 1st, one day after Zaha Hadid was born. Zaha Hadid was born in 1950 on the 31st of October, and Heinrich Tessenow died on the 1st of November 1950. So was a German architect, professor, and urban planner active in the Weimar era. Yes. No, I was looking at the year of his birth. He was 12 years older than Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier was born in 1880. No, 2 years older than Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier was born in 1878. I'm always a little bit confused. Either he was born on 1887, Le Corbusier, or 1878. One of them. Sorry for being not sufficiently precise. Anyway, Tessenow is considered, together with Hans Pölzig, Bruno Taut, Peter Behrens, Fritz Höger, Ernst May, Erich Mendelssohn, Walter Gropius, and Mies van der Rohe, as one of the most important personalities of the architectural German panorama during the time of the Weimar Republic. Now, please note all these names. To be considered together with them is not a little thing at all. I mean, here you have the glorious names of German architecture: Hans Pölzig, Bruno Taut, Peter Behrens, Fritz Höger, Ernst May, Erich Mendelssohn, Walter Gropius, and Mies van der Rohe. But his destiny was to be less known. And also, I have to say, I really struggled to gather some material about him. Very, very difficult. It is very, very difficult to find images with his work. And when I did find them, they are very low resolution, very small pictures. And I don't quite understand why. Maybe because of his connection with Albert Speer. I don't know. I mean, he was a major force in architecture, but it's very, very little material about him on the web. In fact, the Wikipedia in English doesn't even say anything. There is no list of his works. I like the way he looks like. He looks like D.H. Lawrence, the famous British writer. He looks like an intense man, a serious man. I like him more than most other architects. Even in his older age, I think he looks like a man who knew something about suffering, but he also has some kind of a bitter humor or smile on his face. I like him. I like Tessenow. And his architecture influenced architects like Giorgio Grassi, about whom I talked a few days earlier, the rationalist Giorgio Grassi. He's considered, in a strange way, both belonging to the arts and crafts movement and to the rationalist movement. And he had a particular sensibility. There is some anchoring in tradition, but there is also the purity or the rigor of neo-rationalist or rationalist work. We'll look at some drawings now. Again, I couldn't find a lot of images with his work, but I still gathered around 80 images. You see, his drawings are very. I mean, there is an influence coming from Schinkel to him, but his drawings are very, in a way, very modern, but also nostalgic somehow. You know, look at the ceiling. You know, where he exposes, the wooden structure, but the walls are white, and the floor is, almost a contemporary Cartesian flooring. Of course, the human silhouette is not quite belonging to our time, but otherwise, if you make abstraction of the treatment of the ceiling and the treatment of the flooring, you would say he's a modern architect. Well, a little bit less here because of the wall coverings and the little curtains, those fragments of curtains at the top, and the chair, and the furniture on the left. But I like his illustrations. He showed, I think, a sensitivity that was not really dry. He also tried to evoke the atmosphere of a room. Also, here he tried to evoke the atmosphere of a garden. And I like the way he drew the trees. It shows sensitivity. They are not, these trees are drawn in a, descriptive manner, but they are not, overwhelming or cynically drawn, or no, I think they show sensitivity and skill. And there is a balance between the facade of the building and the, the impressionism of nature. And even this drawing, architecturally, you would say, come on, there's nothing exceptional here. Well, this is like saying life is a sum of boring moments or unexceptional moments. I actually see a certain poetry here. A door is open, and I see a chair there that maybe the one who is looking is moving towards, and there is a table, and then there is a horizon, and the sky, and some trees in the distance. So I think it's a nice drawing, and even this one is a little bit sweet. It's true, but it was done at a time when there was a. I mean, would you have imagined, or would you imagine, for example, Zaha Hadid drawing something like this? We just talked yesterday about the fact that Zaha knew nothing about domesticity. Well, it seems Tessenow did know something about domesticity and appreciated it. And his drawings evoke this. Um, Now, yes, there is a level of naivete, if you want. Again, what architect today would draw, birds in the courtyard or in the space, the garden around the building and so on. But this also shows a little bit of humor and an appreciation for things that do not belong only to the human, and I actually think that we should appreciate again such representations. Uh, Sorry, the resolution is not great, but I continue to like his drawings, his architectural drawings, because they are not just explicitly addressing architecture in itself in an almost narcissistic way. You can tell that beyond architecture here, there is life. And architecture is supposed to serve life, and not life to serve architecture. And even these sketches, these drawings, they are a little bit sweet, but you wonder, is this an architect, or is he what is he, an illustrator of some seriousness and skill of domestic scenes? Yes, he was an architect, all right. Look at what is on the table there, a little doll, and then something that is expecting some fresh bread to arrive on, and maybe some scissors there, and then I don't know. It's life. It's And this is a manually drawn drawing. It's I mean, just imagine for how long he worked just for the wall covering. But the wall covering has its importance, as does the rug. And he even shows what is to be seen through the window. Yeah, I'm still amazed at the hard work he put into covering the walls with, and also the ceiling with this wall covering. Anyway, uh, I also like the way he draws the trees, because he appreciates the beauty of the foliage of the tree, and he understands that there are two worlds: the world of the structure, symbolized by the trunk of the tree, and the world of ornament, symbolized by the foliage, which is impressionistically displayed or represented. And so is the green part, let's say the ivy that is surrounding, the vertical elements at the entrance. Maybe here there is some influence coming from Schinkel or his own appreciation and love for nature. I don't know, but it is about an involvement with the complexity of life. Although he does it in his representations, his drawings are simple. Apparently, he said, because he was advocating simplicity, and he said, not everything that is simple is good, but everything that is good is simple. And I think he achieved this in his own work. And I so regret, I have a little book on him that was actually reissued in India, and I have it here. But on the web, I found images of his drawings and, some more documentation about one building and some other documentation about another building. But he built much more than that. And I couldn't find information about all that work that he did. Anyway, we saw this one already. Now you see, he took time even to draw the what the wood was all about. In other words, he was very careful to illustrate, but without obsessiveness. Things that have to do with the tactility, with the I see here a man who understood the domestic reality quite well. And although the drawings are rather simple, but there is here and there, in some details, a concern for something that makes the drawing alive. And I particularly like when you see the plan is very simple. It's you would say it's a banal house. Yes, but the way he drew it, the plan and then a view, a perspective. The perspective also is drawn in a very humane and warm way, although the building is very Cartesian and very simple. There is something of a childlike approach to architecture that I actually like. And there is also an involvement with tradition, but there is also a level of modernity. The architects he was associated with were all very modern architects, at least for that time, but not just for that time. You saw on that list, there was Gropius, there was Walter Gropius, even Pölzig and Mendelssohn and Bruno Taut. This was a building that was built, and you are going to see it. Well, I'm a little bit confused because maybe this is a building that was not built, or I couldn't find pictures of, but he built a similar one, except that there are no steps there or no ascending. You'll see the building. It was a flat land of the building that he built. It's possible that this one was either not built or I don't know, maybe destroyed in the war as well. Let's not forget this architect built in Germany, and Germany was ravished, well, as a consequence of them starting the war. So, some of these buildings disappeared. Imagine, imagine an architect today doing something like this would be totally dismissed. But this is actually not very different from Le Cabanon by Le Corbusier. So yeah, this is a contemporary drawing actually of a building by Tessenow. Stadtbad in Berlin is a pool, a swimming pool in Berlin that he did, and it is described as a rationalistic architectural work. This is the exterior of the building, and I think it's a very fine work. And both outside and inside, I think is very coherent and convincing. Now, yes, there is a certain amount of graffiti here because the graffitis are protesting usually against rationalism, but this is a rationalist work that has some sensitivity, even inside. Yes, it's regular, but if you look at the windows and the glass parts of the ceiling, you see actually an interior that is both monumental and intimate somehow. If the windows would have been treated differently, it would not have been the same effect. I think it's a very fine space, luminous and clear, rational. It's a sports, space. It's a sport. It's a space destined for sports. But I think it has the way he handled everything. It has a certain level of intimacy, uh, rationalistic warmth, if I could express myself in an oxymoronic way. Here is a different story, but I still think what we see is architecture, and maybe with a capital A. It's abstract. It's this convergence of these four diagonals towards a one perspectival point is I think it's impressive, and it's an utilitarian building. It's not, but I think he did a lot for it is a swimming pool here, but it is architecture, no doubt. Now you see other pictures taken by a different photographer of the same space. And you even see a swimmer or someone who is ready to plunge into the water through some spectacular form of acrobatics. Now we see another work by him, which is a place for building for representations, festivals, theater from 1910, 1914, so a little more than 100 years ago. He built this building. This is an old picture. It looks very contrived. It looks very rigid and dogmatic. But to me, it also looks. I mean, look at the symbol of yin and yang at the top. Now, I don't know if this was done by him or it was his intention, but I have a feeling this building has a level of metaphysics that is not to be ignored. It is a metaphysical building. There is a level of surrealism. It is a surrealistic building, although it is very symmetrical. Maybe because of that, actually, such an underlying symmetry. The way he conceived it, the way he made it, is today it would be very difficult to build in this way, although Aldo Rossi tried a few times. You also see the influence of tradition, but not in an overwhelming way. You know, it is. This was an architect who was formed at the end of the 19th century, and you know, this is a building done 10 years after the beginning of the 20th century. Look what is happening now, or it happened now at some point. Actually, this picture moved me, you know, because this was a building that was I think was part of Eastern Germany, the you know, the socialist uh, half of Germany, you know, because it's near Dresden. Uh, but it's very sad, you know, to see this, you know, falling apart building by an architect who was important for the German culture, and not just for the German culture. But I think it was refurbished. Let me see. Yeah, the interior here seems to be fine, and I don't know what this gathering is. Again, I had great difficulties to find pictures with his work. Another image from maybe before the war, also please notice the absence of cars, you know, which is so, I think if the cars in today's world would just vanish, at least for a day, we would have a totally different world. In fact, we would have the chance to evaluate our cities and our you know, settlements in a very different way. The cars really affected everything, and you know, if you fill these spaces, empty spaces with cars, you'll have a different perception of everything. Yeah, the building was you know, refurbished. Sorry for the you know, the trademark or the logo of this company which produces photographs. But again, I couldn't find pictures easily with his work. Um, I am myself interested in Tessenow, although I'm not a rationalist, but there is something I admire about this architecture, you know, the level of honesty, and also, you know, the rigor, and you know, there is some poetry here, I would say. This is what I feel. It was a different conception about architecture, you know. There was he didn't try to make you know, acrobatic you know, spaces, you know. There is a level of acrobacy, but discreet and more metaphysical, I would say, not so obvious, hidden. It is in a way a meta architecture, to use the words of Wolf Prix, who actually is himself looking for a meta architecture. He even said, if you only think of architecture, you only get architecture. So I think the best architecture in his conception would be an architecture that goes beyond itself. Yes, is the building, you know, refurbished. Everything seems refurbished here. The houses left and right, and his building. But still no cars, which is, you know, almost amazing. Now, there are other pictures of other buildings by him, which I couldn't identify, but this is still a building by Tessenow. A drawing by him, which is, you know, bucolic. But there is this side in his work that is in some kind of a tension, almost a yin and yang, you know, a complementary work or dialectics with rationalism. Here you see clearly a modern architect, but you also see the sloping roof, which is inevitably sending you to what we call tradition. The same here, you know, the drawing is very simple, it's very clear, it's very clean. But then you have the impressionism of the ceramic tiles on the roofs, and then the two trees which create the stage design for this courtyard. Now this is a school. I'm not sure because either the buildings had been, you know, there were interventions on it. I found all kinds of pictures that seem to contradict each other with the same name. It's a school. I am sure he did this corner of the building. I don't know if he did the whole building, but what I see in the corner does seem indeed to be Tessenow. You know, this is another view of, I don't know which part of the same building. You can see here the quiet rhetoric of the entrance, you know, of one entrance, you know. Maybe I shouldn't use the word rhetoric, but, you know, there is a certain level of willfulness, you know, of those three steps. It's very functional, it's very rational, but there is a level of theater, a certain theater here, you know, the very opposite of the Baroque. I don't know, I think he was some kind of a magician of rationalism, you know. And look at this facade, you know. It's very banal, you know. What is it here? A wall, a door, three steps, two columns, and, you know, the insinuation of some roofing there. But still, somehow, to me, it doesn't seem to be banal. And what is in the center is almost like a human face with the two eyes and the mouth, let's say. Anyway. It's almost Zen, something Zen about it. Other images. This is a school in near Dresden, or part of Dresden, Hellerau. This was, you know, refurbished, and I show some pictures, some older pictures. I'm really sorry I couldn't find a more coherent, you know, body of images about his work. But I still think, you know, I don't know if too many people today pay their homages to Tessenow. We do. And, you know, even if this material is not complete or very well organized, we still learn. I learned something from looking for these works, and I have a better idea about what his position in architecture was. It's very interesting that he received Albert Speer, as I said, in his class, and then Albert became his assistant for a number of years. But Albert was rejected in the studio of Hans Pelzig. And then, as I said, he became the architect of Adolf Hitler, unfortunately. And his son, the son of Albert Speer, ran a very successful architecture practice in Germany, which is still on, a very big office. So this is a drawing done now, but in the spirit of Tessenow, you know, this little cubicle house, you know, kind of a rationalistic gingerbread house, if I can call it so. Now, some houses also from the same area, Hellerau in Dresden or near Dresden, these are more traditional, so to speak, in the way they look. It's a collective housing, but I guess some of, you know, I mean, private houses united by shared walls in between. Different from what this drawing shows, because here we do see row houses, but they are individualized as opposed to here. Here is a collective housing, but it's probably a sum of individual houses. And this is a clock that he designed. It's actually for sale. If you like Tessenow and you have a little bit of money, you could probably purchase it. I don't know its price. I didn't look either, but I know it was made public for a sale. And this is his grave tomb. You know, this is kind of strange. I don't know if he was. I mean, isn't it strange because this, you know, rather Cartesian architect, rationalist architect, chose, if indeed he chose this, you know, Baroque stone actually or rock for his graveyard. Strange, you know, this. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't know, but it is kind of strange. You didn't see in everything that I showed until now something similar in his architecture or drawings, and here it is. Well, thank you very much. I'm not very proud of what I did, my job today, but I tried.